Hi friends, in this video we're going to be learning about the adventure of Toto, and this is from the Moments book in uh, and by the way this is class 9, the adventure of Toto. Let's get started. So grandfather bought Toto from a Tonga driver for the sum of 5 rupees, and the Tonga driver used to keep a little red monkey tied up to a feeding trough. It was like a truck, and at the back of the truck the Tonga driver was putting the monkey tied up to its feeding trough. And the monkey looked so out of place that the grandfather decided he would add the little fellow to his private zoo. So what this grandfather had a private zoo, so he thought that monkey looked like so like in misery, and he thought, oh, why not we had it in my private zoo. And then Toto was a pretty monkey. His bright eyes sparkled with mischief beneath deep set eyebrows, and his teeth, which were pearly white and were often displayed in a smile that frightened the life of elderly Anglo-Indian ladies. Anglo-Indian means the Americans or any foreigners who marry Indians are called as Anglo-Indian, and they're telling that Toto was a very pretty monkey, and he had bright high eyes, and he had a deep set of eyebrows, and his teeth were sparkling and like little pearly white, and his smile frightened the Anglo-Indian ladies, but his hands looked dried up as they had been pickled in the sun for many years, and yet his fingers were quick and wicked, and his tail, while adding to good look, grandfather believed that a tail would add to anyone's good looks. Also served as a third hand, he could use it to hang from a branch, and it was capable of scooping up any delicacy that might be out of the reach of his hands. So what they're telling here is his hands look very dried up because it was in straight sun, because there is no like top for the Tonga. So he was in straight sun. His hands were dried up, but he was very quick. He was really energetic, mischievous and all. And his tail, he thinks that the grandfather thinks that the tail would add anyone good look, and then he thought that he could also be a helpful monkey in scooping up any delicacy that might be out of reach of the grandfather's hands. And the grandmother always fussed when the grandfather brought home some new bird or animal. So it was decided that Toto present should be kept a secret from her until she was particularly in a good mood. Grandfather and I put him away in a little closet opening into my bedroom wall, where he was tied securely, or so we thought, a pet fastened into the wall. So what the thing is, grandfather didn't like pets so much, and whenever the grandfather brought home some new, let it be a bird or an animal, she didn't like it so much. She always fussed. All the old people will be like, why are you doing such stuff? Is it all needed? Like that. So it was decided that Toto's present should be kept a secret until grandma is in a good mood. And then they put Toto in like a little closet opening into my bedroom wall, where he was tied securely, but he was not really. And he was fastened into the wall, and it was like thing that he was fastened into the wall. And few hours later, the grandfather and I came back to release Toto, and we found that the walls, which had been covered with some ornamental paper chosen by the grandfather, now stood out as a naked brick and plaster. The peg in the wall had been wrenched from its socket, and my school blazer, which had been hanging in there, was in shreds. I wondered what grandmother would say, but grandfather didn't worry. He seemed pleased with Toto's performance. He's clever, said grandfather. Given time, I'm sure he could have tied the torn pieces of your blazers into a rope and made his escape through the window. So what grandfather is telling is, what happened a few hours later, the boy and the author and the grandfather came back to release Toto, and he found that they had this kind of wallpaper. It's not paint, it's like a wallpaper, ornamental wallpaper, which was chosen by his grandfather, was now a naked brick and plaster. And what happened was, the peg that he was tied in was fall, and it's pretty much, it was wrenched in his socket. And the author, which is the boy's school blazer, which had been hanging there, was in shreds. It was pretty much in shreds. And he said that I wonder what grandma would say. But grandfather, he didn't take it much seriously, but he seemed very pleased with Toto performance. He was like, pretty good, huh? He's clever, said the grandfather. He told that he shredded your blazer into pieces, right? If you had given him some more time, he would have made it into a rope and escaped from the window. And his presence in the house is still a secret. And Toto was now transferred into a big cage in the servants' quarters, where a number of grandfather's pets lived very sociably together. A tortoise, a pair of rabbits, a tame squirrel, for a while my pet goat, but the monkey wouldn't allow any of his companions to sleep at the night. So grandfather, who had to leave Dehradun the next day to collect his pension in Saharanpur, he decided to take Toto along him. So in the presence in the house, Toto was now transferred to a big cage in like a servant's quarters, where he had like a private small zoo. In the zoo there was a tortoise and a pair of rabbits and a tame squirrel and a pet goat too. And but the monkey, the Toto, was not, he was not leaving any animals to sleep or take rest. And so he can't leave it in the cage because he was disturbing all the animals. And then the next day he had to go to Dehradun to collect his pension in Saharanpur, so he decided to take Toto along. Unfortunately, I could not accompany grandfather on that trip, but he told me about it afterwards. The boy is saying that I was not able to go with grandfather, but he told me what happened afterwards. And then a big black canvas was a kit bag. Toto was in like a big kit bag, and it was provided for like it's like a military bag, and this with some straws at the bottom because he has to be comfortable. It became his new like place to live, and the bag was closed and there was no escape for Toto, so he could not get his hands through the opening, and the canvas was too strong for him to bite the way through. It was very thick, right? So he can't bite through it, and his efforts to get out only had the effort of making the bag roll on the floor or occasionally jump into the air. An exhibition that attached a curious crowd on lookers onlookers on Dehradun railway platform. Everyone was like so curious and seeing like what is in the bag. He tried to get out of the bag, but it was just like a little jump. It was not, but a lot of people saw like what is this thing moving inside his bag. And then on the Dehradun railway platform, everyone was seeing curiously. And Toto remained in the bag as far as Saharanpur. But while grandfather was taking ticket at the railway turnstile, Toto suddenly poked his head out of the bag and gave the ticket collector a wide grin. He was like, he just poked his head out and gave the collector a wide grin. And the poor man was taken aback. With great presence of mind, grandfather's annoyance, he said, "Sir, you have a dog with you." He didn't see properly, so he said, "Sir, you have a dog with you. You will have to pay for it accordingly." In vain did grandfather take Toto out of the bag. He took Toto out of the bag, and in vain to that he tried to prove that it's a monkey and it's not qualified as a dog or even a quadruped. And Toto was classified into a dog by the ticket collector, and 3 rupees was the sum which he had to give as the ticket for the so-called dog, which is a Toto or the monkey. And grandfather just had to get his own bag and took from his pocket, and he had to give his own money because there is no other way, and our pet tortoise, and said, "What must I pay for this since you charge for all animals?" The ticket collector looked closely at the tortoise and prodded it with his forefinger and gave grandfather a pleased and a triumphant look. "No charge, it's not a dog." So he's telling that no charge, it's not a dog, you can take it. So after that, when Toto was finally accepted by grandmother, he was given a comfortable home in the stable when he had a companion with a family donkey. The family donkey's name is Nana. And on Toto's first night in the stable, the grandfather paid him a visit to see if he was comfortable. To his surprise, he found Nana apparently he was pulling Nana, and he was trying to keep her head as far as her. She was maintaining distance from Toto, and grandfather gave Nana a slap across her haunches, and she jerked back, dragging Toto with her. She had fastened her on her long ears and his sharp teeth. He pretty much bit her with his sharp teeth on her on Nana's long ears, and Toto and Nana never became friends. A great for Toto during the cold winter evenings was the large bowl of water given by grandmother for his bath. He would cunningly test the temperature with his hand and gradually step into the bath, first one foot and the other, as he had seen me doing it, until he was into the water up to his neck. Once comfortable, he would take the soap in his hands or feet and rub it all over himself. When the water became cold, he would get out, run as quickly as to the kitchen fire in order to dry himself. If anyone laughed at him during this performance, Toto's feelings would be hurt and he would refuse to go with his bath. One day, Toto nearly succeeded in boiling himself alive. So what's happening here is how does Toto bath means it was a cold winter evening, so they have warm water for him. Toto cunningly will test the temperature of the water, and then first he put one foot in it and the other. He has seen this author doing it, so he's doing the same. Until then, he was once comfortable, he would take the soap on his hands or feet and rub it all over himself. And when the water becomes cold, what he'll do is he'll run out as quickly as possible to the kitchen fire in order to dry himself. If anyone laughed during this process or this performance, Toto's feeling would be hurt and he would refuse to go on with this bath. And one day Toto nearly succeeded in boiling himself alive. Let's see what happened. A large kitchen kettle had been left on the fire to boil for a tea, and Toto, finding himself with nothing better to do, decided to remove the lid. Finding the water just warm enough for a bath, he got in, and with his head sticking out from the open kettle. This was just fine for a while, until the water began to boil. Toto then raised himself a little, but finding it cold outside, he sat down again. He continued hopping up and down for some time until grandmother arrived and hauled him half boiled out of the kettle. So one day the water was set for the tea, and Toto had nothing better to do, so he went into the water. It was just the right temperature, and but he was as the temperature was rising, he was feeling a little uncomfortable, but as he got a little bit he was lifting his back, and he found it pretty cold, so he was inside, and he was again doing the same up and down. He was going up and down, and and after some time, luckily grandma came, and grandma took him outside half boiled out of the kettle. And if there is a part of the brain especially devoted to mischief, that the part was largely developed in Toto. He was always tearing things into pieces. Whenever one of my aunts came near him, he made every effort to get a hold of her dress and tear a hole in it. One day at lunchtime, a large dish of pulao stood in the center of the dining table. We entered the room, finding Toto stuffing himself with rice. My grandmother screamed, and Toto threw a plate at her, and one of my aunts rushed forward and received a glass of water in the face. When grandfather arrived, Toto picked up the dish of pulao and made his exit through the window. We found him in the branches of the jackfruit tree. The dish was still in his arms. He remained there all afternoon, eating slowly through the rice, determined on finishing every grain. And then, in order to spite grandma, who had screamed at him, he threw the dish down from the tree, which shattered with delight, and it broke into 100 pieces. So at one lunchtime one day, there was this pulao they made, and it was the center of the dining table. When they entered the room, they saw that Toto was stuffing the rice into his mouth, and grandma was screamed at him, "Go outside," like that. And Toto threw a plate at her, and he threw a glass of water into her to her aunt, and ran, and as soon as he came, he went and sat on the branches of a jackfruit tree. He was eating slowly every single grain, and he was determined to finish everything. And then his grandmother, who had screamed at him, he was angry because she screamed. So what he did was he just threw the uh, uh, utensil that they made the pulao in at her grandma, which shattered into 100 pieces. Obviously, Toto was not a sort of pet that we can keep for long. Even grandfather realized that we are not to do and could not afford the frequent loss of dishes, clothes, curtains, and wallpapers. So grandfather found the Tonga driver and sold back to him for only 3 rupees. So what happened is they were like, we can't keep Toto anymore, he's too mischievous, we can't afford all the frequent loss of the breaking of dishes, tearing of clothes and curtains and wallpaper. So grandfather found the same Tonga driver who he bought the Toto for 5 rupees, but he only sold Toto for him for 3 rupees. It's he thought that this was literally better, and you guys can go through all these questions and do it. Hopefully you understood this lesson. This was such an amazing lesson for me to teach. It was really interesting. Make sure like, share and subscribe to get a mischievous pet like Toto. Just kidding. Okay, so like, share and subscribe. Bye.